Buff, your mic's off, I think. All right.
Nah, just let him keep going. That's great.
All right, we'll let him go.
Yeah, that's
We
awesome.
can't hear you, Buff.
Oh, here we go. All right, we're live. Here we
start
go.
it up again.
Show is started up. We are live here with Mr. Mike Procopio. We appreciate you being here, man. I know it's a huge deal. Thank you for your time. TJ, you want to give us a little bit of breakdown here on a Tuesday edition of Prop Stars with our guest star, my friend?
Yeah, honestly, it's probably the first time I've truly been like nervous on this podcast, Mike. But in the NBA, like Mike won't talk about how important he is, of course, right? But in the NBA underworld, just doing a deep dive down this rabbit hole, you find out the respect this guy has in the NBA. And it's insane we get to have a guy like this in the beginning stages of our podcast. And I'm just excited for that. So thanks for coming on, Mike. But Mike is a guy that, and you could cut me off or whatever, Mike, whenever you want, but this is the intro from the research I've done, was a guy that was respected like in the Northeast as far as like just a ball coach, right? And somehow he got hired through connections and experience to help Vin Baker maximize his career. And, you know, Vin Baker had a reputation of being, you know, a party guy and battle with addiction, which we all respect when it comes to that.
Yeah,
and Mike kind of got brought on board to help Vin Baker to be the best person he can be. And from the stories I've heard, they didn't know how much Mike really, truly knew the game of basketball. So one day he's talking to Vin Baker, doing whatever he does, and Danny Ainge is walking by and overhears how Mike's talking basketball with Vin Baker, maybe some of the other Celtics, right? And Danny Ainge goes, wait, run that back really quick. And from what I understand, Mike was like, oh, no, sorry, I wasn't trying to overstep. And Danny Ainge goes, no, I want to hear what you have to say. And Danny Ainge pretty much brought him on the Celtics, right? I mean, he was part of the Celtics program, obviously, but brought him on as a coach. And from there, sky was the limit. And now you have guys like Kobe Bryant mentioning him in post-game conferences, press game conferences after finals games, saying Mike Procopio is my Jack Bauer, which I'm assuming is a reference to the famous TV show, right? 24. And to say that, to hear the Black Mamba talk about a guy like that, I don't care who you are. I literally have chills right now.
Yeah,
and when I was watching it, it almost brought tears to my eyes because like of how special he was. And the most fucked up thing about it was the first time I heard that press conference, he had his daughters in his lap. And it's just some powerful shit. You know what I mean? A guy that has 2 daughters, don't get me started on that. And now it's guys like Dirk Nowitzki, Antoine Walker, all these guys respect this dude and they talk about him like he's, you know, like this prophet of basketball. Mark Cuban brought him on as director of player development. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah. Director of player development.
Yeah. And I mean, that's insane as that goes. But Mike, just give me the start, right? Like, how do you go? Like, how'd you get introduced to basketball? And just I'm gonna let you take the floor.
All right, TJ. First of all, I like that fictional characterization of my career in Boston, which none of that actually happened, besides me being around with Vin. So
okay.
So I'll do Star Wars. I'll give you the episode 4, 5, and 6, and then 1, 2, and 3. We'll go through the Celtic stuff. So first of all, so at the time, about 2003 or so, I was just working out college players, working out high school guys. I was an assistant coach at a prominent AU program called the Boston Amateur Basketball Club, run by Leo Papil, who was a fixture in basketball circles nationally for the last 40 years. So I was just basically hanging around, just doing that, you know, living in Revere, Massachusetts. And they just acquired Vin Baker in a trade. It was very controversial because of the fact that they made the Eastern Conference Finals the year before. They make this trade for Vin for Kenny Anderson, Vitaly Potapenko, and a couple other guys that were, you know, that were pretty, I would say, influential in their Eastern Conference run. And Vin had some, you know, issues off the court as far as production, drinking and things like that. They wanted me to just, because I don't drink, I've never drink drugs or anything like that. I was just a basketball guy. So they wanted sort of positive basketball guys in his life. They had, so I ended up living with them for about 3 or 4 months, and throughout the early season that year. And, it was great. Vin was awesome. I was basically working for the Celtics, breaking down film. But then when I got back at night, just sort of talk to Vin, hang out with him a little bit, and just be a positive influence. So that's ended up, wasn't all that successful. It was, Vin ended up getting bought out, had some substance issues with drinking. So it's funny. Chris Wallace is calling me right now, the GM of the team. That was the GM of the Celtics. Now he's a scout for the Houston Rockets. He's just calling me now. That's pretty weird. But anyways, yeah. So anyway, it didn't work out great. They ended up buying him out. They ended up buying him out of his contract. And then that was that was the next year. He ended up suspending him for the team, and then he ended up getting bought out the next year. It ended up not being a great deal. So the new owners took over. I was living with Vin for a few months, and then the new owners, Wick Grosbeck, Steve Pagluka, and their group took over in February of like 03 or 04, and then Danny Ainge got hired in April of that next year that season. So a little weird, but I'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
So how I started out, I was 18 years old, just graduated high school, loved basketball, wasn't very good at it, but really worked hard, really was a fan of it, followed it. No really internet back then, but I wanted to get into basketball. I was keeping score at this men's league, outdoor men's league in Revere, and a referee named Paul Campbell knew this guy named Leo Papeo who ran this AAU team. AAU wasn't a circus like it was today. It was sort of like in the back channels of basketball. No one really knew a lot about it. The people that were in it did, great players. It's funny. It's sort of like movies today, where like movies back then, acting was so much better, but the effects was terrible, versus today where the effects are great, the acting not so great. So like we would go to tournaments. So I would start out, I was 18. I was just entering college freshman year. And I was basically hired to like keep stats and drive guys around. Being 18, I knew nothing about basketball. So this guy, Leo, just, worked for Rick Pitino. He had a great career in basketball. Worked for Rick Pitino at Boston University when Rick was just starting out as a head coach. Ran this AAU team that had countless Division I players on it, won national championships. So the guy was locked in, dialed into that. And so I was exposed to that, going to tournaments where Vince Carter, Kobe Bryant, Tim Thomas were on the same team, looking at it like, what the fuck did I get myself into? Yeah, our team went like 0-20 my senior year. Didn't really have this big time basketball background. So I'm a kid from Revere going to all these events in New York, New Jersey, Philly, all around Massachusetts, and just seeing these big time players. We had guys like Chris Herron, who was featured on a 30 for 30, went to Fresno State and things. We had a McDonald's All-American named Wayne Turner, who was a starter for Kentucky for 4 years. So we had all these players, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in basketball. It wasn't like today where everybody, dreams about being the head coach of the Lakers when they were 19. I didn't have any of that. I just wanted to be around it. I consider myself like a fat Forrest Gump. I just wanted to be around great events and great basketball, and just be this fly in the wall that just gets to watch it and has access to it. So my first summer, I ended up working like 11 weeks of basketball camp while those guys went out. I was 18. They weren't taking me on the road at that time. So I worked camps all across the Northeast, and just sort of trying to cut my teeth, trying to learn how to coach, trying to learn how to, work with players. So the BABC, the team that I was with, ended up being a Nike sponsored team. I ended up making a phone call to try to work a prestigious Nike All-American camp in Indianapolis, where all the big time players would go. A guy by the name of George Raveling answered the phone. So George was prominent coach, USC, Nike executive. He just resigned from USC a couple years before. So he ran this camp, and, I asked if I could work. He said yes. All big time players, probably like 200 players at camp. I would say about 150 to 165 mid to high major players. So I
Yeah.
got a chance to, sort of network a little bit. Ended up meeting a couple of mentors that taught me how to teach players how to play and how to individualize their game. There were no trainers back then, no real shooting coaches. So those guys would like work out. So the high school kids would play during the day, and then in the middle, they'd have all these college counselors working out. Well, the first class of college counselors were Vince Carter, Tim Duncan, and about 12 to 15 other first-round picks that would work out with these coaches. They weren't picks yet. They were still in college. Miles Simon was there, Mike Doliak, a bunch of big-time college guys. So they would work these guys out. They'd hire NBA scouts to work those guys out. So I'd watch those workouts, and I was more infatuated with that than the camp, coaching kids and coaching the games, because I never saw individual coaching like that. Yeah. So I ended up meeting a bunch of people that sort of put me on the right path as far as teaching players how to play. I would leave the camps like that and then go back to Massachusetts and just go around any college, Boston College, BU, Northeastern, and try to work their guys out. So I ended up learning how to do that. I was still helping Leo out with the team. Rick Pitino gets hired in '97 to be the head coach, president of basketball of the Celtics. He hires my guy as his head scout, so Leo Papillo. And so I didn't get hired right away. I was a senior in college. Ironically enough, I was going to get hired by Rick Pitino to be his driver, if of all things. Like, he just needed a guy to drive him around. Didn't like driving his own car in Boston. So I'm like 22 years old. I've done all this stuff in basketball as far as like working players out, coaching all these camps. And I wanted to coach a job in basketball, but that's the best I could do to get me to close to the pro level, being Rick Pitino's driver. It didn't end up working out, but I was close. It was crushing to me not to get the job. So I ended up just continuing my, working out high school, college, any guys that I can, be around. Well, like Leo being with the Celtics, there was one summer where like Bruce Bowen, I don't know if you know Bruce, big time defender, San Antonio.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Spurs.
Yeah. They picked him up. He was a nobody at the time, like played in France, played in the minor leagues, was a little bit with the Heat, but wasn't really a prominent NBA player. He was the first NBA player I ever worked out. They were like, hey, can you work this guy out? I was like, yeah, that's fine. I worked him out a bunch of times, really liked it, enjoyed it. Spent some time with him, talked to him a little bit, probably for about a couple of weeks. And that was my first NBA guy that I worked with. I kept on, just working out as many players as I could. Coached at a prep school, coached anywhere I could just to learn as much as I could about the game, watching film, watching tape on guys. And then a couple years later, I ended up getting hired by the Celtics again to now live with Vin Baker and do, live with Vin Baker, just be a positive influence, help the Celtics on the basketball operations front, just watching films on European guys. European thing, drafting European players wasn't as a big thing as it is today. So I would just like spend about 14 hours a day breaking down film of Euro guys that were prospects in the draft. Did the Vin thing. Danny Ainge takes over the team as far as the president of basketball operations. It just sort of has me around and tries to promote me a little bit, as far as doing other things with the team, as well as, besides breaking down film, going to some local games to scout and things like that, giving them any intel that I could on the camps that I would work, the players that I would work out, and then worked with them. And then my big break came the summer of '04, where I was working a camp in Chicago, and I met a gentleman named Tim Grover. And Tim was, Michael Jordan's trainer, worked out, Michael Finley, Jawan Howard, Dwayne Wade, and all these guys in Chicago. It was an interesting story. First couple of years I worked that camp, and I tried to talk to Tim. He wasn't working the camp. We were just at his gym, and I would try to talk to him. He wouldn't give me the time of day. And I always wanted to work for the guy. I would work for him over any job in basketball, just because it was new. There weren't really trainers around. He would work out all these NBA guys, doing strength training in basketball. That sort of was more my thing than scouting. I ended up, Antoine Walker had a charity game in Chicago, and I was walking out of the gym for the camp. We were going to lunch, and then Paul Pierce comes in, and he goes, hey, Mike, can I get a workout in? I'm like, yeah, Paul, I'm heading out to lunch, but when I come back, I'll work you out. And then he goes, all right, I'm going to work out with Grover the weights, but I'll meet you back here, what have you. And I was like, yeah, okay. Came back from lunch, worked out Paul for like 2.5 hours. Grover was there. And then after the workout, Tim walked up to me and he goes, hey, I've never seen a guy like you look like you, work out a guy like that and the workout go that well. I was like, yeah, stand in line, motherfucker. Everybody tells me that. No, that's fine. So he goes, hey, I'd like to hire you to work with my team.
Yeah.
I'd like you to work with us, work with all my guys. I want you to be the head of my basketball. I'm like, fuck yeah, where do I sign? And he goes, well, go back. I said, well, I work for the Celtics now. It's sort of my full-time job. He goes, well, we could structure it where you work for me for 3 months, work for the Celtics for 9 months, and then go from there. So I came back, talked to Danny about it, and Danny was like, hey, man, you got to go and do that. And so I was like, all right, great. So I would work for the Celtics for 9 months, work for Tim for 3 months. And here I am on the court with like Michael Finley, Juwan Howard, Dwayne Wade, Andre Iguodala, and all these other guys. And I was in heaven for 3 months a year, just being able to do that, just being able to use everything that I learned. Up to that point, I would work with like European pros, couple guys getting ready for the draft, but nothing like that. Yeah. Nothing like those level of players every day, all day from like 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then we would have our guys come in and play in pickup with like 3 NBA referees. I mean, it was big time. And that sort of propelled me, with sort of what I do as far as evaluating players, but working with players on the court. And then, from there, Danny came to me a couple of summers later and was like, Mike, the NBA doesn't allow guys like you now that work for NBA teams to work out NBA players in the summer. It's a conflict of interest. It gives us an advantage. I'm like, all right, you got to make a decision. Do you work with us or do you work with Tim? And, it was a little bit of a tough decision, but not really. Like I ended up working for Tim, leaving the Celtics, and that ended up being working for Tim full-time 10 years. And, it was a great experience for that, working with NBA guys at a great facility in Chicago. And then, I got the opportunity then in 2008 to work out Kobe right after he loses the Celtics. I was working a camp out in LA. Tim was working with Kobe, traveling, doing everything for him, taking care of his knee, his body, and, ended up working out Kobe a couple of times in LA. Great workouts, great story with that. Sorry, guys, I don't want to bore you with this, but
you're not. We're like locked in, and we're just not trying to interrupt you, man. You keep it rolling.
Keep going.
I'm almost done with it. So, so I'm in a camp for Nike, actually, the Kobe Bryant Skills Academy, and working camp. And then Tim calls me and goes, "Hey, I want you to work out Kobe tomorrow. Somebody's going to call you to pick you up the next day, in the morning to work him out." I'm like, all right, great. So I got a call from one of the staff guys. He goes, "Hey, Kobe's going to work out. We're going to pick you up. Workouts at 5. We're going to pick you up about 4:30." And I'm like, all right, great. Camp gets over like 4, that you could just pick me up right where we have dinner or whatever. He goes, no, not PM, but AM. I'm like, okay, we could do that. I'm here shitting bricks at like 12 o'clock at night saying, what's this workout going to be like? You hear all these stories of Kobe and things like that. So, we drive to UC Irvine at like 4:30, get there. Kobe's already there, like almost drenched with sweat, getting up shots. So he was already there for like 45 minutes. So we get in, work him out for like 2.5 hours. I was, great. Ended up Chase Budinger, guy that was at Arizona. He was a college counselor at the camp. He was a first round pick in the NBA, played at Arizona.
Yeah.
He was at the workout as well. So it was Kobe and Chase, 2.5 hours, great work. At the end of the workout, I was like, "Hey, Kobe, what are you doing? What are you doing the rest of the day? What does the rest of your day look like?" And so it was like 7:15 or whatever. He goes, "Well, I'm gonna lift after this for like an hour and a half, grab breakfast. Then we got, I got yoga or stretch, yoga, martial arts, hot tub, cold tub, lunch. Go take a nap and then come back at night and do some road work and just get another workout in." Now, this is July. They just lose in the playoffs not too long ago. And this is like 2 weeks out. and this guy's already doing that. This is all day. This is 5 days a week. And I was amazed. And I was like, wow. I said, hey, Kobe, you want me to come back? We could work out tomorrow. He goes, you could come tomorrow, but I'm not going to touch a ball tomorrow. So from 5 to 7, I'm just doing nothing but defense for 2 hours. I won't even touch a ball with a 30-pound weight vest on. And I was like, holy shit. I've never heard of anything like this before. So just being around him and being able to like see that was pretty amazing. The next year, there's an article written in the New York Times about how Daryl Morey was with the Houston Rockets that would prepare against Kobe Bryant using analytics. Analytics wasn't a huge thing at the time, but now it's sort of coming at the forefront of basketball. So Shane Battier was one of the toughest defenders Kobe had to face. Daryl, in the article, Daryl would have like this like Secretary of Defense type sheet that would give every like weakness statistically that Kobe would have. Now, ironically enough, Kobe was, they would still win, but he was probably the least efficient against Houston than any other team. So ironically enough, it's in the winter. It's like springtime. I'm spending time with Kevin McHale in Minnesota. Kevin was the head coach and GM of the Timberwolves at the time. I met him through in Boston. We bumped into each other a couple of times. He was like, hey, Mike, come out, spend a week at the house, be around the team, just to hang out. So I'm there, and then I got a call from Tim. It says, hey, Kobe Bryant's going to be calling you about this article in the New York Times. He wants to know what's going on with it. So I got a call from Kobe, and he's like, hey, Mike, he go, look, I don't like anybody having anything on me, right? I want you to find out everything that these guys know about me so I can combat it in my preparation. So I'm like, all right. So I call every coach.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I call every coach. I call every scout. I call every assistant coach that I know. I said, hey, how do you prepare for Kobe? Walk me through it. And everybody gave me sort of the same answer. Well, force him in the toughest possible shots, make him take tough shots, If you're around basketball players as long as I have, you ever come back to a guy like that with an answer like that, he'll tell me to fuck off, and I'll never hear from him again.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So I said, that's not good enough. So I end up diving into film and watching about 8 or 9 games that Houston played against Kobe for about a 36-hour period. I'm just crushing film, taking notes, figuring things out, defensive rotations, all his shots, just what it looked like. So I come up with this thing, and I'm like, all right, I could give him all this, and it'll be good. He'll like it. But also, I'm seeing this stuff. I'm seeing how he would take a lot of tough shots, early shot clock. I would see how Trevor Ariza would be in the right corner when Kobe would like to get the ball a lot on the left wing and drive or operate out of the left wing. I said, you're not using Trevor. Trevor's not a player that you could just give to and just create offense. He's not an isolation scorer like Kobe, but he's a good spot-up shooter from the right corner with his feet set. He's great at straight-line drives. He's great at cutting. And then you got Pau Gasol there, which, every time Kobe would drive, Pau would sort of like relocate to an open area, and Kobe would almost never pass to him until he really just had to. And then the last thing was Yao Ming was literally the Great Wall of China. He's sitting there in the middle of the paint. Kobe would always want to drive and finish over him, and that's just an inefficient way to do it. Tom Thibodeau was running the defense in Houston, so those guys were really locked into trying to stop Kobe, contest shots, force him into tough looks. So I gave him all the defensive rotation stuff, but I also gave him, like, this is what you're not doing. This is the stuff that you're messing up with as far as taking tough shots, not utilizing these two guys in particular. And you got to do a better job with that because you're just inefficient early shot clock. You're going to take tough shots, take them tough, late shot clock, late game clock, but you got to be more efficient, especially like when you drive and Powell sort of relocating to the elbow. Everybody's centering on you. He's wide open. You got to give the ball up, and get those guys going so it takes less pressure off you. Sweating bullets, I'm not going to lie. It was sort of like getting potty trained at gunpoint. Like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. I pressed send on the email. Like, should I really done it? But sort of learning from Tim. Tim, I've learned this from him. Just, our clients that we serve, we gotta be honest 1,000%. We gotta, regardless if we're gonna lose that client, they're gonna disagree. You got to be able to do that. And I'm like, all right, yeah. So I just press send. We're good. And Kobe goes, I got it. All right. So I'm like, oh, this guy just told me to go fuck myself. Basically, it's basically like getting a thumbs up fucking text back then, like an emoji text. I'm like, fuck. All right. I'm like, I spent fucking 3 days of my life doing this shit. And he goes, I got you. And so I watched the game at the Minnesota Timberwolves in their arena had some just like suite they put me in because they had no game that night. They had like a team thing. So I'm watching the game in the suite just on a like TV, whatever. Mikhail comes in from periodically, just starts laughing at me like, what'd you just do? Like, are you even going to get anything out of this guy? I'm like, nah, probably not, but it's fucking Kobe Bryant. What do you want me to do? So like he's laughing, but like that game. Yeah. So basically I would say is like, look, you got to use these two guys in this way. And then also when Yao can't move side to side. He's a big time shot blocker, but if you just let him plot in the paint, he's going to be effective. You got to draw him out and you got to force him to move. You move side to side. You can't move. And so Kobe does exactly what I asked him to do against Houston. He has like 35 points. The biggest thing comes with about a minute and a half left in the game. Ron Artest was like supposed to be guarding him, switched off to Yao Ming. Yao Ming steps away from the basket. Instead of trying to go over him, he goes around him, beats him, gets to the basket, sails the game, gets interviewed, and Mikhail's laughing at me because that's how Mikhail is. He was like, you think you'll ever hear from him again? I go, fuck no, I'm never going to hear from him again. I just did my job as a one-time thing, but it was cool. I get a text, an email like 45 seconds after he gets interviewed. He goes, we got San Antonio. I need the same thing tomorrow. So I ended up doing that for Kobe for like 4 years. And every game, scouting, like every opponent that he's going to face, every player that he's going to guard, every player that's going to guard him, strengths, weaknesses,
at least you gave him, like you gave yourself a blueprint to kind of figure out what he wanted, how to do it, and then you were able to replicate it in 24 hours instead of 3 days.
Dude, it's every game.
That's crazy.
So it's literally I'd stay up. We would do it. We would do it every game. So basically, I'd give him this report, with all these stats, video, intel, how he should attack and approach the game. He'd get it probably 7 a.m. About 7 a.m. his time. He'd work out probably at 6 a.m. or so every day, like in practice days or whatever, game days. So he'd get it on a game day. He'd go through shoot around, and then I'd start going back and forth with him about tweaks in the report, like this is what he agreed with, disagreed with, have to show him video. I was sort of like on OJ, I was basically on OJ's fucking, law team trying to defend him from murder every day because I was going back and forth with him every day. I felt like I was in a courtroom, and we would agree, we'd disagree, we'd agree to disagree. So it was pretty cool time. It was just so then so I'd probably stop talking to him email wise by about an hour before game time. And then he would play. And then I'd start getting messages at about midnight. I'd have to give him a report about what I saw in the game, what he could have done better. And then we start going back and forth because I was in Chicago. I wasn't out in LA. And we'd be going back and forth till about 2:30 in the morning. And then the next game, same thing. So just every game was like that. So pregame, he got his reports. Yeah.
Was the communication at first always through email, or like would you guys?
It was always email. It was almost never talking. So we had a conversation about how this was going to look like after a couple of games. He had a game. He played Houston. He played San Antonio. Then he played Dallas in his first few games. And then we didn't really talk a lot except the basketball stuff. And he goes, "How is this going to work?"
Yeah.
I go, well, first of all, we're not going to be friends. I'm not going to call you, talk to you. I'm not going to ask you what the weather is. I'm not going to ask you what your favorite fucking movie is. I say, look, for this to work and for me to be completely honest with you, I want to do it all by electronic communication. I want to email. We'll do this through email. You'll get it all electronically. If you have any questions, you email me. That's the best way to do it. And we're not going to be friends. I got to be able to do my job. You got to be able to do your thing. All these guys that are working with players these days loves going out to eat with them, taking pictures, tickets, shoes, all that's bullshit. Like we don't do that here. So That's how the communication is going to be. So it was all through email, and until like I would go to LA to work him out on, throughout the years. I would go out, we'd spend a lot of time together and stuff like that. But it wasn't one of those things where it was going to be a friendship. I think if you're going to try to be friends with a player, you can't tell them the truth because A, you're friendly with them. B, if they're like taking you on trips and taking you out and you're paying for all this stuff, they literally own you. You can't do that. Like you needed to just stay level. So
can I ask you? Can I ask you this too? Like,
please do.
That's an amazing. That's just amazing. Let me ask you this. I don't want to talk about the money aspect of it, but so are you like a subcontractor? And when does that get talked about? Like, is it after the first game? Does you bring it up? Does he bring it up?
Yeah,
like,
no,
hey,
he asked me.
I need to work an hour.
No, he asked me, when do you want to get paid for this? Now I'm a dumb motherfucker now. I'm not very bright. At the time, I just wanted to learn. At that point, I would work with a lot of good players, but I didn't work with anybody like him. So I said, look, I ain't getting paid. I don't want to get paid with this. I have a job with Tim. I'm good. This is going to take a lot of time. This is basically, this is sort of subcontract from Tim because Tim worked with Kobe. Kobe was a client for the company, Attack Athletics. So I was basically working for Tim, getting paid anyway. So I was like, look, and Tim was like, dude, charge him, whatever you want to do. Like, and I was like, nah, I want to learn from this. I want to learn how his mind works. I want to learn how to develop players through not playing like Kobe because that's impossible, but like his routine every day. How does he do, workouts, players? How does he think the game? So a lot of it was just, me learning. It's sort of being like a 35-year-old intern. You know what I'm saying? Like just learning the best from the best and how to. No, it wasn't incredible. I probably missed out on about $200,000 a year I could have been fucking making, but it was a great learning experience.
But that got formula and you learn to be able to replicate that and use that as your stick to go forward and as somebody who outsources one. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it takes me about 3 hours to make minute rights and 4 hours to watch 60 minutes. I ain't a fucking bright guy. So, but like, no, I remember like,
you know what?
Go ahead, TJ.
No, go. No, okay. But you doing that for Kobe, did that land you the job in Dallas being director of player development? Because
that's the only reason why. That's the only reason why.
Okay.
So
you invested in your own future and it worked.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but in 2009, so I got to be friendly with Adrian Wojnarowski when he was at Yahoo Sports before he was at ESPN.
Yep.
And Woj and I would talk a lot just about the game. We met through a common friend, Kevin Mackey, who just passed away this past week. He was a head coach at Cleveland State, beat Indiana, a longtime scout for the Pacers, basketball guy, Boston guy like me. So we met through him and we would talk, back and forth. And he was like, hey, what are you up to besides doing the Grover stuff? So I told him what I was doing for Kobe. So after the playoffs, during the playoffs, I was in Boston and Woj says, hey, I want to do the story on you about, your work with Kobe because no one's ever done that to a player before. No one's ever broken down film. Because the first question I get is like, why don't the coaches do that? And the coaches do that. But he just wanted somebody that eyes on him, that were unbiased, wasn't scared of him. Because he would tell me, he goes, like, Mike, besides you and Grover and Phil Jackson, there aren't many people who tell me the truth. Like everyone else is afraid of me. Everyone else is like, they don't want to get me mad or they just want to agree with me just to be in my circle. I don't like that. I want guys that are going to tell me the truth. You guys lay it out for me. We don't always agree, so that was a big thing for me. But in that time, it was just a good time. But anyway, so he wins the championship in 2009. It wasn't all that hard against Orlando, and this huge story comes out. Huge story from Yahoo Sports about all the work I did for Kobe. And at the time, when you go to Yahoo, they would give you the 4 biggest stories in the world. It was like me, Obama, the war in Iraq, and something else. It was like one of the 4 biggest stories Yahoo had in the world on that day. It was pretty cool. But that sort of started it. That sort of started the thing. And my fault.
You're all right. I know you got
no,
notifications going on.
No, it was just Dirk. Dirk's probably just busting my balls about something. But anyways, so that sort of started it, and then he wins the championship in 10, which was a big deal for me because it was Boston. It was my former team, that was a pretty funny story. Like, so it was 1-1. Again, I don't travel. Like, I had my fiance at the time. I'm loving it, working for Tim, living in Chicago. The timing was a little messed up because he was 2 hours behind me. Ahead of me, behind me. Anyway, it was behind me. I'm not that fucking bright. But anyway, so it was like 2 hours before me, whatever it was. Anyways, so it'll be like 3-4 in the morning. The time was a little weird. His ringer was like the swooshing sound from Knight Rider. You ever watch Knight Rider?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That fucking sound to this very day haunts my dreams because I had a BlackBerry by my bed and I'd be like sleeping at like 3:30 in the morning. And my wife, would tell me, what the fuck does he want now? And I was like, come on, and it'll be these conversations. Well, anyway, 2010 happens, watching the playoffs in the living room. They win game 1, Boston wins game 2. And right about an hour after the game, I get a text or email from Kobe. I need you and the other motherfucker in Boston tomorrow, meaning me and Grover. He goes, I need you and
wow.
TJ. So I go to wake my wife up. It's like 1:30 in the morning, and she goes, "What time are you leaving?" Because she figured it out. So me and Tim go to Boston. We go to Boston and spend. They play 3 games in a row in Boston. So here, Tim's taking care of Kobe on the physical front. I'm talking to Kobe in his hotel room, watching film. He didn't have an iPad at the time. iPads just sort of came out. So I'm literally like he would want to watch certain players, doing certain things. So like I'm going back and forth. It's like we're staying down the street at the Park Plaza. He's at the Ritz or the Four Seasons in Boston. So I'm literally doing the film, going to his hotel room 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Crazy. And so it ends up being down 3-2 coming out of Boston. And he goes, no, I need you guys here. I need you guys back in LA. So Tim and I go to LA, we go game 6. They win luckily because Perkins gets hurt, blows his knee out during the game. They were definitely lose. Morale was down. They had Bynum had a knee thing, couldn't really do much with it. So it was couldn't do much with it. I thought they were going to lose 4-2. Perkins gets hurt 3-3. Me and Grover go to game 7. We're guys that we're behind the scenes. We don't like to be ahead of the scenes. We're not sitting courtside or anything like that.
Yeah.
They fucking put us for tickets. They put us in the last row. Game 7. We're literally knocking on the wall where the jerseys were, like in the rafters.
That's unbelievable.
So 2 of the guys that's like closest to Kobe, last row, and we got no ego about it. We're laughing, throwing Bob Uecker jokes, fucking in the front row. So like we talk about Kobe, right? And somebody in front of us, he goes, "Excuse me, what do you guys do?" And like we never really talk about it. I don't know why we did at the time. It's like, yeah, we work for Kobe Bryant. And the guy looked at us like, yeah, motherfucker, they put you in the last fucking row, but you're you're working for Kobe Bryant. Yeah, and I'm the fucking Pope. And I'm like, and we're just shaking our head.
That's fucking that's amazing. That's amazing, man. That's crazy.
Fucking,
that's like insane. You guys are grinders, bro.
No, it was funny, man. And then confetti, win the championship. Tim takes a picture. I'm not a big picture guy. So, if you look like me, trust me, you don't want to take many fucking pictures. So he takes a picture with Tim. Everybody else is popping champagne bottles, going to after parties. Me and Tim go to fucking the IHOP in fucking Irvine, California at like 12:30. That's how we're celebrating the game. And fucking, it was hilarious.
That's crazy, man.
And then I get a call from Kobe's agent, and about 5 months later, and he was like, "Hey, coach, I need your ring size." So I was like, "All right." I didn't know. Yeah, so got a ring size, and about 4 months after that, I get a fucking box from UPS. Well, first of all, it's not a box. That I missed the UPS at the time. I forgot all about it. And then they say, hey, you got to come pick up a package. I'm like, all right. Usually you go pick up a package. It's like, you go fill out something and then you're all good. Well, I had to go down some fucking elevator like I was Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd in some fucking movie. What was that? Spies Like Us?
Yeah,
so I was like in a fucking elevator going down.
Yeah.
I'd never been to the side of UPS before. This guy in a fucking cage opens, gives me some box. So I open it and it's a box, and you just like open the box up, and it's an LED light with a Lakers championship ring with my name on the side and like twirling around. That thing was ridiculous. So didn't get paid from Kobe, but I really did. Like championship ring. That was pretty fucking cool. And then a year later, I got hired by the Mavericks and, director of player development for 6 years. So, and then after that, here I am today. So that's sort of where we're at.
That's it. That's incredible. Do you feel like now, was it so hard back then to break down film? Like there's no YouTube. You have to like literally get
Well,
I read some story about you when
Feel
you worked
like-
for the Celtics and you're getting tapes mailed to the mailroom or something, something where
well,
you guys were getting like tapes from a third source.
I mean, like it wasn't like it was the fucking pyramids back then, fellas, but it was, it wasn't what it was today for sure. YouTube was around. There was
It's a paradigm shift. You were in the middle of it, man. You were in the middle of the technology change,
Yeah, there was a program called Synergy that all NBA teams use. I used it when I was in Boston, and they allowed me to keep using it because I was working for Kobe. And not the Celtics, but the company Synergy. So it allows you to get video on whatever you want, download full games. If you just want to see certain players do certain things, you could just search the player, click the video, download all that. But it was still pretty tough because you didn't have a lot of the things that you have today. Like my video breakdowns I'll do for clients are much different than I did for Kobe just because of the tools that we get, that we get to use. So it was a little tougher.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in Boston with the Celtics doing those Euro films, they'd have like a box of like 80 VCR tapes would come to my not even an office, a fucking cubicle, and just pop them in tape to tape, make all these highlights. But for Kobe, it was it was stats, it was video, it was calling other guys, getting intel, watching, just constantly going back and forth. And I don't know if I could do that today. I mean, it was a lot of time. It was probably about 12 to 14 hours a day and, throughout the season, every day, all day. And then not only the work you had to do, but then the back and forth with him, just like a lot of players you talk to today, you'd be like, today's Thursday. All right. Yeah, I bet. Motherfucker, today's Monday. What are we doing? Like, are you serious? Like, you could give a player anything today and they'll most likely say, okay, good. Boom.
Yeah.
They won't even look at it. With Kobe, it was
Yeah.
like, he'd go back and forth. He'd all dotting all I's, crossing all T's. And if you're off on your stuff, he'll call you on it. And I think that's how you should work. I think if your work's less than par, I think you should get called out on it. I always believed in that. And that's what Kobe would do. Like I remember once, I didn't know if Kobe was actually watching the stuff. Like I know after the first few games, it was cool. They were playing in Philadelphia, and they had Andre Iguodala on the team. And Andre, that was his matchup. So I had everything done, all good. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hold off now. I'm not going to give it to him in 7. So I put my phone down, put it on silent. I went to work, drove to work. And I get to work, and there's like 28 messages on my phone. Mike, where's the film? You good? Everything good? Did I say something wrong? Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you thought I quit. And
Oh, wow.
So that level of give a fuck level, to me, that's where I wanted. That's the guy I wanted to work for. I don't want to work for some guy that you're doing all this work, getting all this money, all these accolades, and then like a lot of times that happens in the NBA. Like guys, they don't really give a fuck. Like Kobe once told me, it was funny. So it's 2011. Grover and I go to Newport Beach to work him out. It was right out during the lockout, right around the lockout, 2011 when the lockout was about to end, and Grover takes his family out. I didn't have family at the time. I'm just here. So it's me and Kobe in in this room, in this house, right? Not his house, but he had another house at a resort, like a villa at a resort. So him and I were hanging out. And first of all, we just talked hoop the whole time. And we just, that's all we talked about. Because I figured like a guy, like same thing when I would talk to Michael Jordan, like, I was around Jordan a little bit, and you could see that if you talk to Jordan about the weather or politics or anything like that, I'm not a politic guy, but like it just shuts you off. You don't want to talk about that stuff. But if you talk about something that resonates in them, basketball, footwork, like all my conversations with Jordan would always be about footwork. It would always be about what he did, how he did it, why he did it, ankles, ball placement, all that. So with Kobe, we were just talking. First of all, he busts out that he taught himself how to play the piano. So here's Kobe playing the fucking piano for me for like 30 straight minutes at his place. I was like, Jesus Christ, if I ever made a video of that, I'd probably be a gazillionaire, right? But I never do the picture thing or the video thing, but like just talking. So we talked about Mamba mentality, because I always thought Mamba mentality was sort of like full of shit, right? Not on his side.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and I was busting his balls about it. He goes, yeah, you're right. It's a fucking scam. And I said, well, why it's a scam? I always wanted to get his perspective on things. He goes, it's a scam because, we're going to get some players and we're going to get some people. We're going to get CEOs taking pictures and going on social media saying, I got Mamba mentality, like Kobe, right? And they'll do it for a day or two. And then they'll never do it again, but they want to get the notoriety by doing it. He goes, Mike, I got something wrong with me. I can't shut this off. Like I got to get up at 4 a.m. I can't sleep. All I want to do is get on the gym and work out and compete and bust somebody's ass. Like, that's who I am. I can't shut it off. All these other, like these people are going to come and they're going to just fake it. And it is what it is. It's good for people. I get it. It sort of motivates people.
That shit gets me hyped just listening to it. It's just
ridiculous, man. Like the workouts. And one more funny story from that. So before Grover got there in 11, when I was working him out in California, it's just me and Kobe for the first couple of nights. And Grover didn't get there yet. So we work out at a gym. I think it was like UC Irvine, whatever, the first day. The second day, we go to work out at some gym, and it's just the gym was bullshit. And he was like, yeah, we can't work out here. So I go, well, what are we going to do? He goes, well, we're going to work out at a JCC. I said, KB, you can't fucking work out at a JCC. There's going to be soccer moms and leagues and kids all over the place. No, I got it. I'm like, I'm fucking telling you, it's going to be fucked up. He goes, no, I'll make a call. I'm like, all right, make a fucking call. So he makes a call. We pull in the back. Security comes right in. They sort of like, they petition a court offer, right? So, but there's people everywhere. And again, phones weren't a thing. iPhone might have been out by then. Yeah, iPhone was out, but like, social media wasn't really a big thing back then. I'm like, KB, we're going to be on TM fucking Z. You know that, right? He goes, no, we're good. So we work out. The next morning, we stay at Pelican Hill. I'm at breakfast, and I'm looking, and TMZ.com, of course, they got Kobe with like the Jewish hat and the beard. Kobe works out with the Jews. That's the headline. You can look it up now. It's still there.
Wow.
And you can Google it. And here's a grainy video of me working out Kobe. Some soccer mom took, and it's all over the place. But no, that was just sort of Kobe.
Oh, man. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was all basketball. It was all business. He likes to fuck around a little bit and have fun and go back and forth. He liked guys who went back and forth with him. It was really good. It was a really cool experience for sure.
That's incredible.
I can't Buff. I'm like, I got. Oh no, go on.
I've got half my
guys,
friends.
My internet went out, so
TJ, go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
My internet sucks. No, my internet just sucks, and it's so frustrating. It's like the worst time to go out. But like Buff, I'm pinching myself. We're literally. This guy is just trading stories back with Jordan, Kobe. Like, that's just crazy to me that like we have someone on the podcast that is just that connected.
Well, I love this story where
world.
he was, he He couldn't even ask Kobe. He was like, no, don't pay me anything. But then I hear this story later when Dirk reaches out to him. He's like, you're not fucking rich enough to hire me. You know, he's like over here like busting his balls, telling him, he's like, nah, you got to pay this
Yeah.
much. So I love how you found your worth in the midst of it, as well as the way you bust balls. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah. You know,
No, it's
from where
amazing.
from where I come from, and you know, our guy Eric Langan will tell you the same. Like Boston guys, there's two types of Boston guys. And 98% of Boston guys, like they always want to act like they've been there before. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's a big time billionaire or somebody, just some jerk off on the street. Like you act the same. And then you got the 2% of Boston guys that want to tell you, like they want to tell you everything they do. They want to brag about everything. I think my brother brags on me more than I do. He goes, you know what my brother did? I go, fuck off, John. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm always behind the scenes. I always and that was the Jack Bauer thing. Like Jack Bauer, and no one knows who Jack Bauer was.
Yeah.
Like in real life, nobody knew who Jack Bauer was. He's behind the scenes. He saved the world, and got no fanfare for it. And that's sort of how I roll. That's how I do it. And it sucks because it's probably cost me a couple of $1 million over the course of my career. But you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any.
Who was that calling you, by the way? Was that
actually
a general
unknown
manager calling you or no?
No, it's probably some fucking guy I owe money to from 10 years ago, or the Prince of India wants me to invest in their fucking jewel farm, and then wants to give me a cut of it. I don't know which one.
Yeah, you want to buy gold for triple the price?
Absolutely, and I would definitely fall for that.
Now, and Mike, listen, the reason why we kind of first spiked getting you on, and like just through Eric, obviously, we started talking about it. I know you're pressed for time. We appreciate the stories, but
if that's code for you guys wanting to get rid of me, I get it. But I'm not fucking pressed for time, so I'm good.
No, we're skipping talking football today, bro. We're keeping you on for as long as you can. But what about we started? All right, great, thanks. We started talking about how families are spending, $1,000 to go see a game, and Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Kuminga all sat out. This is what spiked getting you on the show. We wanted to hear an NBA's insider on kind of like what's your stance on that, and how do you what's your take? Because I know Jordan had a famous quote where I know there was a guy that worked on the roof all day, and he used his hard-earned money to come see me play. I want to give him a show. And I don't know if Kobe had that same mentality. I feel like he did. But what are your thoughts on that?
It all depends on which. I sort of see both sides of it. I do. Back then, the game wasn't as individualized as it is today. Social media, people telling you how good you are. You had a little bit of that for sure. It wasn't a perfect part. The game wasn't perfect back then. It is definitely not perfect today. And the problem is you got so many more people that work for an organization today that have the ears of the owners, the general managers, and have a lot of power in it. And if their stance is you gotta, the science tells you gotta rest, they're gonna do it. And back when I was working, I didn't work. I think I was in the NBA 7 years ago. So it wasn't like 50 years ago.
Yeah,
there was probably like 20% or 15% of the people that work for teams. It was probably about 15% compared to today. The staffs, the coaching staffs, the medical staff, they all double, quadruple in size, and you got a lot of people that sort of want to get their points across, and that's what they believe in. Look, I'm all for trying to prevent injury. I am, but I also know how much money that it costs to go to a game today, and I know the struggles that people have, and just to bring their kids and their families to games and do what
it's a long season, man. I know it's something that's been talked about a long time. We saw an interesting take as well, and it was just about a former NBA player that was just talking about the habits of NBA players are not as good as they are today, and he kind of felt that was part of the reason why maybe they didn't get injured so much, is because they had a little more lubrication in the body. They drank, they smoked, they would eat pork or whatever. And he was saying nowadays kids can't wait to become vegan. You're seeing Achilles, calf strains, this and that and the other. Do you think there has anything to do with that, old versus new?
Look, I'm 500 fucking pounds. I can't be talking about
You look
nutrition.
great.
I'm the last guy you want to be talking nutrition to. But I will tell you this: the money fucks everything up.
Sure.
Back then, guys are making mid-level exception, which is the average salary of every NBA player. It's an exception every team gets to go over the cap to sign players. It was like $5 million. Today is 12
I agree
million.
with saying low tops don't help. I think low tops are a problem with the whole Achilles thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like today. It's like 30 years ago. You have like one expert that talks to you about this, and one expert talks to you about that.
Right.
Everyone's a fucking expert now. There's 9 million, and they all contradict each other.
Yeah.
You need more. You need more work. You need less work. You need more rest. You need less rest. I don't know the answer. I do know that I think when you have average players making $20 million a year that are average to above average player, it fucks the whole thing up. And it's good that they make that money. Don't get me wrong. I want players to make that money, but like you're less inclined to put your body on the line, in my opinion, if you're making it clouds what that your day-to-day should be. And sometimes it's not the player that makes that decision. So a lot of people says, well, Wemby sits out or this guy sits out. He's soft. He's soft. Well, if you got your doctors, you got the trainer telling you can't play, then you can't play. Like they're not going to fight. And say, oh no, I want to play. Back then, you didn't have as many medical people talking to players as far as like you're playing, you're not playing. If the player felt good, and he didn't have any effects, then he'll probably play. Now today, you just have a lot of more people that have decision-making, possibilities on a team. So it's not in the players' hands a lot. Now, I like the fact that the NBA made the rule that you got to play 65 games, or you're not eligible for any
awards. Yeah.
So it takes a little bit about, all right, I'm going to take 2 games off for this, for this nothing. Now, instead of like, if I want this, because it's extra bonus in my contract, it's extra bonus for the team, all that. So I need to be playing these 65. So yeah, do I think the players are as driven? Some are, for sure. You get some of the top players and some of the top role players. They're driven. They want to play every day. They put all the work in, and then you get guys that get paid. And then once you get that big second contract, then they stop working. Then they sort of, the give a fuck level does go down. So I think there's a little bit of both of that. You just can't be black and white on the issue. I think all players should play. I think they should all compete. I think they should play as many games as they're healthy to play.
Agreed.
But again, it's like if these people from the organization are telling them not to play because they want to rest. Yeah, now, there are some factors involved. The game's different. The game's different. The up and down. The style of play is different. They're playing a lot faster. So you're probably a little prone to get, a little bit more injured. Now, here's where I don't like it. I don't mind as much the games. It's the practices and the non-practices. Like during the season, you get your training camp that you rev up in training camp. But after the first month, you're barely practicing the rest of the way. You might ramp up by the end of the year. If you're a playoff team, you might start ramping up practices again. But for the most part, you ain't practicing. You're playing back-to-backs. You get a day off. Guys shoot. Guys do a little bit of training in the weight room and clean up stuff. But they're not practicing for the most part. I would say 75, 80% of practices are walkthroughs, get some shots up, and go home. And I think that's back in the day when you strap it up and you practice 2 hours a day almost every day, and then you're flying commercial, not the private jets they're doing it today. That's where I think players that played before are a couple of things. A, they're jealous of the money for good reason. They're jealous of the money that these guys are making today versus what they're playing. And second, like they don't get everything evolves. You don't get the science, you don't get the staff, you don't get the amenities that they have today that they had before. And that's when you're comparing players. That's why I never do it. I hate those fucking lists. Anybody with those top 20 NBA players of all time lists, Mount Rushmore could kiss my ass. I don't like it, because if you're going to try to compare Wilt Chamberlain or Jerry West or Bob Cousy to players today, you can't, not because they're not good enough, but because they don't have the training. They don't have the staff. They don't have the nutrition science. They don't have just the knowledge that these people have today that gets players prepared to play. They don't have that. Now, if you're going to try to compare it, you have to give them the same things that the players have today to train and get better, in the nutrition and the coaches and all this stuff. They don't have that back then. So that's why I never ever give top 5 lists or top 10 lists of all time, because you can't compare it. But I do think that injuries are a major concern. And I have no knowledge of it, so I don't really like to speak on it, but I would just say, ramp up practice. If you're going to sit them out of games, that's one thing. But because if you start saying that guys got to play, what's going to happen is this: somebody's going to get hurt, and they're going to have major lawsuits in the NBA about, well, I didn't want to play. Now it's he said, she said. I didn't want to play. These guys told me I had to play, and now I got hurt. So just like anything else in the fucking world, I think lawsuits and things like that play a part in it too. So everybody just wants to cover their own ass with this thing.
Yeah.
I just say ramp up practices more. Like, practice more, get their bodies going, more and more. Like that I like. If you're going to sit out some games, especially back-to-backs, I think the NBA can't do less games because it's less revenue, and then it's less BRI, and then it's less money players to make. So you can't cut games. I would expand the schedule as far as the dates, not the games you play, but the time, and then get rid of back-to-backs. I think if I was going to do anything that's going to play more games in the NBA,
get rid of back-to-backs.
Get rid of back-to-backs.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. So we had a listener
Mike, do you
that
still
was
work with?
Go ahead, TJ.
No, go. I'm such on a delay that. But
You're
do you
right.
still work with Tim Grover at all, or are you guys just friends?
We do some work together. We've got a client. We got a client, and we talk about 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 times a week through text or calls. I was actually out in LA with him last week. He had a summit and a seminar that he has for clients, but we talk very, very often. Tim's like a brother to me, so we do work together.
Yeah.
He might have a client, an NBA client that he might try to get, and he'll be in the process of talking to. So he'd want me to do breakdowns for players and break things down and give him information. So if he gets the client, usually if he gets a client, he would do the mental side of things. It used to be the physical side. Now he's more of a life coach, a mental coach, on that end of things. And then I would do the basketball side. I'd either do the training on the on-court or the video and the film breakdown, and just sort of give the guy the basketball. And that's one thing Tim was phenomenal at. He's the best boss I've ever had by 10 miles, where if you work for him, he gave you, he didn't micromanage. He gave you as much leeway and much rope as you want, and he let you do your job. And he really had a lot of faith in you, and that's what he did. And I never had a boss that had faith in me like Tim did. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so he's the best. He's the best of the best for a reason.
That's cool. Now, Buff, you have access to the comments. I don't because of my internet, but we had some people that love the podcast, and they were happy you were on. They want to ask him some questions. Can you name some list of questions?
Yeah. Nico Dobbs wanted to know about the French players in the NBA, talking about Wemby, Rise Asher, you got Sarr, Behringer. Now, you were talking, I wanted to kind of join this question. You were saying you used to get 80 VHS tapes thrown on your cubicle desk and go through all these Euro players.
Yeah.
Were you kind of at the forefront of the Euro movement as everything
was? No.
That was done before. They just had you breaking down the tape so you could try.
Again, we had Boston at the time had probably one of the smallest staffs in basketball. They had Chris Wallace was the GM. Yeah, Leo Papilla is director of scouting.
Yeah.
And they might have had a couple of part-time guys, and that was it. They didn't have any European scout. They had nobody. So when they were preparing for drafts, I remember being around that office when they were getting ready for drafts, and they would have 1,000 tapes that nobody looked at. So they just needed a guy to. So it was me and it was Ryan McDonough, who ended up being Will McDonough. His dad was a famous sports writer in Boston. He ended up being the GM of the Phoenix Suns years later after they won the championship.
Yeah, he was the GM of the Suns.
Yeah, so he would be breaking down. So both of us would basically start at the same point. I would do the European films, give the breakdowns to Chris Wallace, Leo Bapil, and then Danny Ainge, and then Ryan would do the college guys. So, his list was a lot bigger than mine, but guys like Darko Milicic, Florent Pietris, Mikael Pietris, guys like that was sort of in the beginning stages of the European deals. I would break down. It was really good. It was fun to me because you always read about the college guys because everybody knew about the college guys. Now everybody knows about everybody because of social media, but nobody knew about the guys that I would be watching, and that was the cool part. I have to hear some fucking guy speaking Spanish or Italian. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand there was no there was no Mark Jackson and Van Gundy in the Euro League. It was two. It's two psychos fucking talking a mile a minute in a language I didn't understand. But
was that Manu Ginobili in that crop?
Ginobili was playing in the league at the time, so no, I was like, mine was like 02, 03.
Okay,
it was funny. I worked for the Celtics for about 4 seasons, and all I did was basically Europe, and we didn't draft one fucking European player in 4 years. Ainge always laughed at me for that, so it was cool. Like. The people I was around, guys, I was really lucky and fortunate to be around. Oh, hi. Oh, look at you.
There's the daughters. There's Tinsley. There's Briella.
Yeah. I will cut the language down. But
we got a lot of families. We have a lot of family stuff. Oh, what's your thoughts on I'm sorry to cut you off. What's your thoughts on Wemby?
Look, I'm one not to go nuts about a player right away, but some of the things that he's able to do at this point of his career, and is just mind-boggling to me. If he could if he could play 70 games a year in 2 or 3 years, it's like the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's going to be a wipeout for years in a row. He'll be the best player in the league. Now, I'm a Luka Doncic guy. I've always been. The last 2 or 3 years, I thought Luka was the best player. I don't care what kind of shape he's in. He's in the last 2 or 3 years. I thought he was the best player in the game, including Jokic, just because he controls the ball like that. But I think Wemby. I love his training aspects. I love the fact that he does a lot of different things. He's a different type of kid. You would think talking to him when he was like 19 years old, doing interviews, you would have think he's 35. And that's the European aspect of it. Look, I have a lot of friends in Greece. I have a lot of friends in the EuroLeague. I'm working with one of the top 16-year-olds in the world that plays at Barcelona. Like I've dealt with Luka, I've dealt with Dirk. Their approach to the game is much different than American. And again, we get preached to daily about how the American system's broken and all that stuff. But just their approach, just the approach.
It's no D.
Yeah. Just like the approach to the game, it's phenomenal. Like as far as the training, as far as the way they see the game, the way they want to compete.
It's just a different maturity level across seas than it is here in the United States when you're a top prospect and you're on a McDonald's All-American team and everyone's touting you and you're already famous and they want to know what college you're going to and they do a presser and there's just all these theatrics that come along with the success as an American. When I feel in European, it's probably a way more humble approach.
Yeah, and plus, look, those guys are in their system. Right? It's they're in their cadet system. So if I play for like Barcelona, I'm going to play for their teams going up. I got a coach that's screaming at me every day, telling me how much of a piece of shit I am. Not somebody who's jerking me. Not some 35-year-old who's going to like try to sell me to the highest bidder. Those guys get coached. They do 2-a-days. It's usually a skill session and a basketball session. They do a lot of 3-on-3. They do a lot of basketball reads. They do a lot of simple stuff. I hate catchphrases. I hate it. But I do live by one: dominate simple. And those guys, I think simplicity of the game is what's going to bring you, to the next level. And I've been around those European workouts. I've been around those teams. I've talked to countless coaches who do it, and just their approach of how they do it is much different than here. Like here, anybody could be a coach. Anybody, I could just put a T-shirt on, say it's trainer on it, and I can work out anybody I want, and I don't have to have any type of training. Everything there is regulated through FIBA. So if I'm in Italy, Spain, Greece, Slovenia, I have to have a coaching license. I have to go to classes. I have to actually do something in basketball before I can call myself a coach. Here, you don't have to do that. And
That's incredible.
USA Basketball doesn't take that on. Now, I'll say this for USA Basketball. There's a million entities in the game that they don't have in Europe that they have here that they just don't have the manpower to sort of oversee everything. But over there, if you fuck around, FIBA will shut you down. Over here, no one really shuts you down. If somebody shuts you down, that's why like AAU basketball gets such a bad rap. I'll tell you why. AAU, the actual company AAU that's actually down in Florida, like everything you used to do in AAU, it was like for a player, you have age rules, you have to give a birth certificate, you had rules that you played for, the games, everything was the same rules, same minutes a game, same referee, the same, everything's the same. Where now in the game, because and then the coaches, you have to have a dress code, you have to have a background check. Everything was sort of regulated. And it wasn't perfect. You had some fucking characters in that too, but now it's just a free for all. There's no governing body. No, there's no rules. You could be a 20. You could have 3 wives and a mortgage and still play under 13 basketball. No one checks rules. So it's like it's just you got it. FIBA and the EuroLeague, they just operate a different way. And European
they're
players,
more fit. Yeah, it sounded they're more efficient. I went to a Magic Spurs game. My son was like doing some like performance. It was kind of cool. And we had to get there 3 hours before the game. And there was one person on the court. It was Wembanyama getting double teamed at half court, almost like right when he passed half court. And it was for 2 hours straight. He's literally just getting double teamed and he's practicing where to go. I thought that was pretty special. You know what I mean? It wasn't like an eighth guy on the bench, but Wembanyama, and literally he has guys running at him, and coaches are telling him what to look for, where to go. He was in a white beater, and it was just pretty special.
Yeah, San Antonio does things different. I think they were the model of them in Miami, now Oklahoma City, of course, but they were the model of development and doing things that are just not just one-on-one move based. It was a lot of like just different things that gives you different perspective of the game, how to read a second defender, how to, sort of how to move without the ball, get into a spot, they work on defense, they work on different things. And I think that, with Popovich and RC Buford and sort of the people that they had there, and the same thing with Miami. Miami's more of like a Shawshank Redemption, like fucking tough day every day. They have a little bit of a different aspect to it, but it's the same because it holds players accountable. They don't do anything that everybody else does. They make it hard. They teach you, they make it hard, they rep you out, and they correct you. And I think that if you're building a team, that's sort of how it's done. And Wemby, back to Wemby, I think that Wemby will be one of the best players that ever play the game if he could stay healthy. That's the thing.
Right, that's what we all say, right?
Yeah, you don't want to crown somebody so early because the guy, Luka and Dirk. Luka's still in the first half of his career, right? But like what Dirk had to do for 20 plus years, what LeBron had to do for 20 plus years. You have these careers that these guys brought it every night. That's why it's not fair. And any 7-foot European white kid gets thrown in there with Dirk, and it's not really fair because Dirk carried a team for 20 years. Well, first couple of years he had to figure it out, right? But like after that, he carried a team. It's a little bit different between a guy who could score 20 every 4 or 5 nights and a guy who does it every night, double team every night, has to bring it every night. So Wemby, if he could stay healthy, the things that he can do is sort of magical on the floor. And it's funny. I was talking to Luka. Luka would bust my balls about it. I would bust his balls about Europeans can't play, even though I think the EuroLeague, I'd rather watch the EuroLeague than the NBA. I love European basketball. I'm a Barcelona guy. He's a Real Madrid guy. We would always bust balls together.
Oh, wow.
Like he would say that he told me the international guys are going to take over the league. And I was just busting his balls and, whatever. Now on my top 5, you got Doncic, Jokic, Giannis, Shea, Edwards. So it's like 4 now, obviously Wembanyama's in the second team. But out of the 5 best players in the league, 4 of them are European, international, and then you could probably make a case that Wemby's the top 5 player in the league today.
Well, we were talking about the MVP, like it's been won by a European player for how many years in a row? I mean, we're still waiting on an American guy to get breakthrough again,
without question. And the French and the Spanish for sure. Now, obviously Slovenia with Luka, but French and Spanish those guys have been breaking through for a while now, and then you've got the Greek with Giannis, and it just, but those guys are different type of people. Like, like the closest thing to Kobe that I've ever seen in the league right now is Luka, because it's that competitive Luka. I heard stories about Jason Kidd when Jason Kidd played in Phoenix, and Jason would hate working out. He would hate like workouts. He would drills and things like that. But anything competitive, you want to rip your throat out. And I thought that was similar to Luka his first year. Wasn't really a drill guy, didn't love that part of it, but anything competitive, the guy will rip your throat out. And even like Giannis is seeing his competitive nature and things like that. And Wemby does it in a different way. He does it sort of in a Dirk way, where they're both, like, Dirk was a killer on the court, but he wasn't a guy who was going to fight you every day. He was a normal dude. Like, I love Dirk. Dirk's one of the most ground superstar I've ever been around. But like, Kobe wanted to kill you. Anything competitive wanted to kill you. Giannis is sort of getting to that point where, like, now he's getting more mean. He's less of a nice guy in a good way, right? And Luka's the same way. Like, Luka's happy-go-lucky dude. Anything competitive, you could see that look in his eye. He's a scary dude, man. Like, he's a great dude, but like, he gets scary. And that's the difference between a guy who could score 20, 25 and a guy that wants to score 35 and kill you and literally want you to quit, go in the fetal position at night and lock the doors and be afraid to leave the room. Those are the guys that are killers. And, Jokic does it in a certain way. Wemby does it in a certain way. Luka wants to kill you. And
it's like an attitude that you could definitely see.
Yeah, for sure. So that's why I respect Luka, and I respect him for that reason.
Well, TJ, I gotta wrap it up here shortly, man. I know that we're just flowing right here.
Yeah. We had a listener ask about the triangle offense. You have any like direct? I mean, obviously you worked with Jordan, but like, you have any direct?
I didn't work with Jordan,
like,
but I was
direct analysis. Okay. All right.
Yeah. No, I've read books on it. It's one of those things. It was I wouldn't call it a fad, but it was a very popular offense that Kobe liked but didn't love, because it had a lot of isolation to it. He wanted more pick and roll and screens and coming off.
Yeah.
He didn't have a lot of that in the triangle. But look,
the
triangle is great because it allows the ball to breathe. It moves the ball moves, players move, and it's tough to scout because it's really, it's pattern. It's not like a pattern offense where it's a lot of reads to it. It was cool. It gives you spacing, a lot of interior passing, which is great. And it just, forces players to think. And it's sort of like it's sort of like what Golden State ran when they won all those championships, split action, where like it wasn't just patterned and it wasn't just five guys around the 3-point line jacking up shots. It's a lot of movement, screening, cutting, and it takes a while. That's why new players, it takes a couple of years for them. If it's a new player playing in Golden State, it takes a couple of years for them to really know the offense, because it's a lot of read based, and you got to play with it. You got to practice it. You got to scrimmage it. You got to play games. You got to make mistakes. You got to get back up. All those things.
Yep.
Can I ask you? I always said this from like, I think I'm more than a casual fan, but obviously nowhere close to you. The reason why I loved watching Golden State play was they moved the ball around for 48 minutes. I feel like in the NBA, the final 6 minutes of like a big, let's say a playoff game, it's ISO ball, right? You want your best shooter shooting the shot. Less passes means less turnovers. I feel like that's what every NBA team does, but until Golden State. I feel like Golden State almost transcended that from me watching NBA, because they would move the ball and do backdoor cuts with a minute to go in the game, where nobody did that. Watching the great teams, it was always put the ball in your best player's hands and let him get a shot up, where Golden State was always moving with or without the ball for 48 minutes. Is that accurate, or am I just not seeing?
No doubt about it. Two things on the Golden State. Two things on Golden State. One, it was the ball movement, where like Curry, with all the amazing things that he does with the ball in his hands, he's the best player in the league playing off the ball, in the sense that like he'll come off pick and roll, pass the ball, sprint to the other side, come off another screen, don't get it, go back to the other side, come back off another screen. I mean, he moved like his movement off the ball should be studied and put in museums. I mean, that guy is ridiculous. And then they were the first team that I saw that switched 1 through 5 because they had all these athletes on the floor. They would switch 1 through 5, and a lot of times you couldn't switch because the center was slow. And then again, it's just sort of the building and the game getting better. And as far as now, most teams switch 1 through 5. So it's they definitely transcended the game, and their offense is a lot like the triangle offense, but just different ways. Now Miami, you see it. My former intern Nola Roach consults them. And they built this offense on no screening, and that's it's something that doesn't get a lot of play that will start getting more plays. They run almost no screens, and instead of all this pick and roll coming off, handoffs and all this stuff, they do drive and kick. Where drive and kick. Now they'll do a little bit of screening, but like if you watch it, if you look it up, there's a lot of articles written on how this new age offense about spacing and not bringing people towards the ball, where they drive it, draw that second defender, kick out, and they just keep on moving. So again, I think that Golden State was
do you have to have 5 shooters on the court to do that though, or no?
What's up?
Do you have to have 5 shooters on the court?
Do
you have to have 5 shooters on the court to run that offense though, or no?
No, you don't really need it. I mean, obviously you do. Like the more shooting you have on the floor helps. But that offense is just basically forcing, that second defender to come over and then everybody move in open areas versus just like waiting for that pick and roll to happen and 3 guys waiting. When the ball breathes, when the ball moves, it's different. Like, you just watch the game and the ball's got to move. And I think if you got to sell that, the problem in an offense like that, though, even in Golden State, you don't know who's getting the ball when, because it's triangle is the same thing. You don't really know. It's not pattern right. You're going to get the ball right here. It's like you might get the ball here. You may not get it. Then you cut through. And that's where I think that in the NBA, because guys want stats, I think it's tough to run offenses like that when you don't know when the ball is going to get in your hands. Now, late shot clock is going to get in the best player's hands. I get it. But it's not a flowing thing. So it's tougher. But I think that's where the game's going to go. I think Miami's offense is where the game's going to go. I think it's about 5. You could tell it's sort of like analytics. You could tell when analytics got here that everybody's going to fight it. But in like 5 or 6 years, it's going to take over the league. I think non-screening won't take over the league because you got so many players that are used to playing that way with ball screens and things. But I think as the game matures, you're going to see more and more teaching on all levels about playing without those screens and opening up the floor and spacing and getting to the basket or dishing out for open shots.
Man, that's incredible.
Mike, it's been a privilege, man. Can we have you back on during like the playoffs or something like that? We could talk more.
You got to negotiate through Eric E. Langan at DisneySports.com.
Yep.
All right. He is my agent. Right now, I undersold this fucking thing. I feel like Nico Harris in the trade.
We didn't want to ask you about that.
You got ripped off with the lobster rolls. We'll renegotiate. But hey, thanks for coming on, man.
Mike, it was a pleasure.
Appreciate you. You have no idea how much
with you, man. That was incredible.
Appreciate you guys. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, man. All right, y'all. I don't think we're gonna
have a great holidays.
You guys too. Thank you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, man.
Yep.
For all our listeners, I don't think we're going to be doing a Thanksgiving Day show. We do have a lot of family things going on, and life is always crazy, but we appreciate you. We will be back. I will say NFL notes and whatnot from what I got down. Let's see. Let's just do like the fastest recap ever. Of course, Texans wins, Chief come back. Mahomes is, whatever. He's doing all right. You got the Bears leading the North. You got the Pats winning 9 in a row. Ravens look shitty. Seahawks, you got Jason having a historical season. You got the Packers dominating the Vikings. Anybody who had Emmanuel Wilson, good job. The Giants lose a heartbreaker. I know that was so crazy in the Jameis Winston catch. You had the Jags over the Cardinals. It was really just T-Law, Strange, Washington, Etienne. Yeah, the Browns over the Raiders. Shador's 1-0. He's going to give the Browns fantasy hope. You got the Falcons beating the Saints nobody cares about. The Bucs shit the bed. That was a tough one to watch. That was one of the only plays that I was really unhappy with. And of course, the Niners over the Panthers. We love you guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for tuning in to Prop Stars. We are out.
All right. Be good, guys.